prepared for something new. Everyone is different. So are you. Stay straight. No masquerades. Do things that you'll remember. You can push too far, but stay fair. Stay on track. Give it your all. Get to the bottom of things. Decide what's right. Don't believe in what the others do. Find it out for yourself. Be close to it all. Bring your heart along. Follow your goals. Reach for the stars. Turn the weekend into the loudest party of your life. Are you prepared?
Hello everyone from the Nürburgring. It's the 7th race weekend of the DTM season 2017 and we are here in the Eifel. And as we know, as tradition has it, the weather conditions here are always very, very unpredictable. And one thing's for sure, a lot happened here this weekend, so here are the highlights. Enjoy.
The DTM at the Nürburgring. And as they say, after the rain, the sun. After the sun, the rain. As always, the weekend in the Eifel region will be extremely turbulent due to the unpredictable weather. The drivers are contesting races 13 and 14 and 3 Audi men top the overall standings. Matthias Ekstrom is the leader on 128 points, followed by René Rast on 112 points and Mike Rockenfeller is on 110. However, we can already reveal now that another manufacturer will prevail this weekend. Timo Glock is the best BMW driver on 104 points. And Lucas Auer is the best Mercedes driver on 99. The two-time DTM champion Marco Wittmann is in a very good position to pounce on any slip-ups despite his disqualification in Zandvoort. And here's the grid for race number 1 of the weekend at the Nürburgring. It's Lucas Auer, pole position. Alongside him is the two-time champion Marco Wittmann. Row 2 of the grid contains Robert Wickens for Mercedes-Benz and Augusto Farfus for BMW. It's Paul de Resta and Tom Blomqvist going from P5 and P6. And then on to the 4th row of the grid where we find René Rast and Timo Glock. Maro Engel and Maxime Martin share the 5th row of the grid, going P9 and P10. And championship leader Matthias Ekstrom, a torrid qualifying means he's P11, and Mike Rockenfeller is alongside P12. Then we find Gary Paffett and Jamie Green on the 7th row of the grid for race 1 at the Nürburgring, with Bruno Spengler and Eduardo Mortara P15 and P16. And bringing up the rear of the grid, it's Nico Muller and Loic Duval. And in DTM for season 2017, points awarded for the top 3 places in qualifying, and that means that Lucas Auer is back in the game and has a chance of winning the title in his 2nd DTM season. He sealed the pole and therefore 3 points for the first race. Will he be able to cut the gap to Matthias Ekstrom, who's only starting from P11?
I'm now here with Lucas Auer, the man who is in pole position. You're back in the game, that's for sure. And listening to you on the team radio, you were so excited. So I guess you're pushing really hard and going for a victory?
Yes, of course. First we have to wait what the weather will do. But anyway, flat out.
But I heard it's supposed to be raining, right, in the beginning of the race?
Yeah, just before the start we're expecting a rain shower, so it could be quite interesting again.
Matthias Ekstrom then, he goes from P11 on the grid, not where he would like to be. He's taken 5 podiums this year, but the season 2017 has been thus far winless for Matthias Ekstrom. To get a win today A lot of work from P11 on the grid. Qualifying was a patchy affair for Audi, and Mike Rockenfeller is also well down the order in P12. It was a patchy affair last time out at Zandvoort for the BMW driver Timo Glock, who had a weekend of highs and lows.
Timo, you had 3 weeks to calm down a little bit, especially since you're fourth best in the championship rating. How do you rate your little emotional outburst in Zandvoort?
It's part of the racing. I mean, emotions are every time with us, and if things are not going to plan, then sometimes, especially if you have it twice in qualifying, then you start to react a bit different, and that's what happened to me. But it's, as you say, 3 weeks gone, and we need to look forward, and that's what we try to do.
P2 in the Drivers' Championship then, René Rast, who's contesting his first full season in the DTM. It wasn't a perfect qualifying for René Rast either. He will only go from P7. So let's find out exactly what Dieter Gas, the head of Audi Motorsport, thinks about the qualifying effort from his drivers that sees them probably further back down the grid than he would have expected.
You've got René Rast in P7 and Matthias Ekström in P11, so it looks like Audi is struggling a little bit there, but does that mean that maybe the surprising rain is helping you there in your strategy?
Yeah, one concern, yes, obviously with these conditions everything is possible really. You need to make the right calls at the right moment, be at the right place at the right moment, and then you can go for a good result hopefully, yes, and that's what we're going to try.
Well, in the IFL, the weather conditions always play a part in the racing. Interestingly, on the grid, the Mercedes will all be lining up to the left over the first 3 rows, and the BMWs will be lining up to the right in the first 3 rows. And Tom Blomqvist will be going from P6 on the grid. A 1:26.484 was sufficient to give Augusto Farfus a second row start for race number 1. He will be going from P4. And the best of the BMWs in terms of qualifying performance went the way of the two-time and current DTM champion Marco Wittmann. He has a front row start and going alongside our pole sitter Lucas Auer. So good qualifying performance overall from BMW. Let's hear from Jens Marquardt.
I was just talking to Lucas Auer and he was saying they're expecting rain for the beginning of the race. But now honestly looking at you, I guess you did not expect the rain, so were you all surprised?
I was surprised. I was actually considering to bring my sunglasses. I should have brought an umbrella. So my strategy was wrong, but I think our guys will have the right strategy, and this is what we count on now.
And I guess in regards to the rain starting before the race is good because now everybody changed tires.
Yeah, I think it's clear now that you have to start on wet tires, but we'll have to see what the Eifel has still left for us for the next hour, and then we'll see when it's crossover time. And yeah, I think we've learned a little bit this morning through qualifying.
And the Mercedes on the left from the back to the front then. It's Paul de Resta in P5. Good qualifying from Paul de Resta, who of course took a win in the opening race at DTM at Budapest, and not many days after that was back in a Formula One car once again at the very same circuit. So good qualifying from Paul de Resta, I would suggest, could be a danger man from P5 on the grid. It's P3 for Robert Wickens, who had high hopes in terms of the championship going into the start of the season. He's another one of the drivers that has not taken a win thus far. He's had a couple of podiums, so let's see what Robert Wickens can do from P3. Cementing the very good qualifying performance from Mercedes-Benz, the young Austrian driver Lucas Auer. He's 1:25.968, giving him pole position and bringing him back into the championship challenge over the final third of this year's DTM. So a smile on the face of Mercedes head of DTM.
Uli Fritz, now you've got 1, 3 and 5. Mercedes in the front, Auer obviously in pole, so it's looking very, very good, and Mercedes-Benz seems to be as strong as we're used to, you guys, here at Nürburgring.
Yeah, it looked pretty competitive the whole weekend so far, but in the end, in qualifying, there are only some points to get. The main issue is the race, and yeah, we need to stay concentrated under those tricky conditions. It will be hard, and also to find the right point where you maybe can change the tires into dry conditions. We'll see. I think it's a big gamble today.
Whatever the weather, this is a beautiful region of Germany. We are at the Nürburgring as the tension begins to build. Toto Wolff from Mercedes-Benz on the left-hand side of your picture. We go into the garage of Audi, and there Dieter Gas to the right-hand side. And in BMW, Jens Marquardt, as the tension begins to build and the engine note will rise ahead of race number 1 here at the Nürburgring. Traction oh so critical at the start of the race. Now Augusto Farfus has got better traction than anybody. Gets past Marco Wittmann and may get past Lucas Auer going into turn number 1. Indeed he does, even before they get to turn number 1. A sensational start from the BMW driver Augusto Farfus as the rest of the cars make their way through turn number 1. Tom Blomqvist is slowing. We're into turn number 2 now. Augusto Farfus is heading Lucas Auer, who is in P2, and then Paul Di Resta is in P3. Said he could be a danger man from P5 on the grid, so Tom Blomqvist with a problem, as we can hear on the team radio. We saw him slowing on the exit of turn number 1. Timo Glock there on the outside, but look at the spray that's being thrown up from the Augusto Farfus car, which is really going to hamper the visibility of those cars that are following behind. And it's Lucas Auer in P2. Matthias Ekstrom goes 3 abreast with 2 Mercedes-Benz cars to try and make his way up the order and try and bank as many points as possible in the championship for 2017. Jamie Green mired at the back of the pack at the moment with Eduardo Mortara. Jamie Green's all orange Audi, Eduardo Mortara in the sister pink car of that of Lucas Auer. So in replay then, it's in sort of the second phase, if you like, of the start process that Augusto Farfus just got some blistering traction and was able to put his car in front going into turn number 1. A little bit physical between him and Lucas Auer, and then a little love tap from Lucas Auer. But Lucas is relegated to P2. Augusto Farfus really getting it right at the start. Let's go on board with Marco Wittmann at the start, who's suffering from lots and lots of wheel spin. The man that wasn't, though, was Augusto Farfus, who just dived through the middle. So too Paul Di Resta. So both Augusto Farfus and Paul Di Resta finding traction where other drivers could not find traction, and Marco Wittmann pushed back to P5 or even P6 at that point. Timo Glock getting past Maxime Martin on the start-finish straight, on board with him right at the start of the race as well. And there you can see just how the visibility is really challenged for the drivers. Timo Glock right behind Marco Wittmann. So it's Farfus Auer, Di Resta, Wickens, then it's Marco Wittmann. Crucially, Matthias Ekstrom has found himself up into P7 ahead of René Rast, who's P8. Then it's Maxime Martin, P9, and Maro Engel is P10. We're on board with Matthias Ekstrom now, and takes advantage of the fact that Maro Engel runs wide, and he is able to move himself up into that P9 position. So over the opening few laps, Augusto Farfus has opened up a gap of more than 5 seconds, so right at the head of the field. Gary Paffett, as we go on board with him now, is fighting hard, staging the first of a number of overtaking manoeuvres. This is for P12. His first victim is Mike Rockenfeller, who is struggling in the rain. Gary Paffett does get past the Audi driver, Mike Rockenfeller. So Gary Paffett now finds himself in P12. You can see how Mike Rockenfeller is really struggling for grip, and the Mercedes-Benz driver going past really rather easily. There you can see in replay Mike Rockenfeller to the inside, and it was there at turn 1 where Gary Paffett got a vastly superior exit. Mike Rockenfeller gave him racing room, in fact ran wide, and it was quite an easy overtake for the Mercedes-Benz driver to get past the Audi of Mike Rockenfeller. Lucas Auer in P2 is protected, if you like, by Paul Di Resta, who's running in P3, and Robert Wickens behind him in P4, so he has a couple of Mercedes-Benz drivers behind to act as wingmen for him. Maxime Martin gets past René Rast, and that was a seemingly easy overtake from Maxime Martin, but as we can see in replay, it wasn't quite as easy as we would think, as they were side by side. It gave René Rast the inside for the next turn, but he did leave a gap on the inside, and it was that Maxime Martin went through and therefore gained P8. Gary Paffett is looking for P11 now, as he's fighting with the BMW driver Bruno Spengler, and the conditions seemingly more to the Mercedes-Benz and Gary Paffett's liking than that of BMW and Bruno Spengler, as Gary Paffett does go through and moves himself up another place to P11. However, it will get even better for Gary Paffett, because Maro Engel and René Rast are fighting over P9 and P10, and Gary Paffett just lurking behind, and as René Rast touches Maro Engel, they both run wide. Gary Paffett is able to take advantage and moves past 2 cars in 1 overtake around turn 2. So the race really coming good for Gary Paffett, who now finds himself in P9. Maro Engel, who's lost out on a couple of places, and the touch between himself and René Rast causing both drivers to go wide, and the man that profits the most is Gary Paffett. As you can see, that incident between René Rast and Maro Engel is under investigation by Race Control. So crucial question is, when will the drivers come in from their wet weather tyres and put those slick tyres on, because the dry line just beginning to make itself obvious around the 3.629 kilometre circuit here at the Nürburgring.
Still okay, but definitely going away a bit.
So some team radio from Gary Paffett then, who was reporting back on the conditions of the track and how the tyres are responding on track. Well, certainly for him, everything going very well at the moment as he's picking off the cars ahead of him. So too is Matthias Ekström, who's on something of a charge and lining up Timo Glock now for P6. So Matthias Ekström, of course, into the NGK chicane they go with Timo Glock. He gets a vastly superior exit from that chicane as they head towards turn number 11, the Coca-Cola turn. He has got the inside line. Now the better traction is probably going to come on the outside for Timo Glock, as you can see that dry line beginning to develop here at the Nürburgring. They're side by side as they run down into turn number 1 now. Can Matthias Ekström put his Audi ahead of the BMW? Well, he does so before they even turn right into turn number 1. Maxime Martin right behind the BMW of Timo Glock, and then of course trying to buy into this as well, having had a supreme performance thus far, Gary Paffett, as Timo Glock has gone around. Now, was there a touch between Timo Glock and the hard charging Gary Paffett? So confirmation from team radio then that there was a touch between the two of them, which sent Timo Glock spinning around, and here is Gary Paffett on board.
I would go in for 6, I would go in for 6. Can I come in? Positive.
So Timo Glock is going to be in for slicks. Marco Wittmann and Gary Paffett side by side in the pit lane as they make their way into the pit lane for slicks. Matthias Ekström ahead of Maxime Martin, as you can see.
I don't know if the rear left is damaged for the car.
So Timo Glock concerned about the rear left as Maxime Martin makes his way out of the pit lane now on slick tyres. Bear in mind they're going to be cold, whereas Gary Paffett has had another lap on his slick tyres, which should mean that it could be an overtake here for Gary Paffett on Maxime Martin. Sure enough, to the inside goes Gary Paffett, whose Mercedes-Benz is running really well on those slick weather tyres, as opposed to Maxime Martin, whose tyres are going to take a lap or two to come up to temperature, and sure enough for Maxime Martin, it couldn't work quick enough.
Position 7, defend on the drive position.
As we see here, he runs off, no contact between himself and Marco Wittmann, but just runs out of grip and finds himself into the tyre barriers. He is able to recover from there. Matthias Ekström, he's come in for slick weather tyres now and rejoins the track, and here comes Gary Paffett down the start-finish straight. He will be ahead of Matthias Ekström. So the drivers that have not pitted yet include Aude Resta Wickens, Mauro Engel, René Rast, Jamie Green and Eduardo Mortara. Of course, mandatory a pit stop during the course of the DTM race, and just as we hoped it wouldn't, it starts raining all over again.
I was running P5, so I was quite happy, but then during the pit stop when the sky opened and I saw the monsoon rain came and I had slicks, I knew that was it. I mean, we could have saved something for sure if I would pitting straight away, but at the moment that was the big points were gone by that moment.
Well, the rain falling when it did was an absolute disaster for Matthias Ekström and also for Augusto Farfus, perhaps the unluckiest man today.
I guess the rain is stopped, so shall we pit? I guess it's so.
And Gary Paffett reporting back on the conditions then. He made most of the slick weather tyres, and Augusto Farfus really struggling.
Yes.
He's really struggling on those slicks and decides to bail out and come in and get some wet weather tyres. Awful luck for Augusto Farfus.
It's just things like this you cannot predict. If I would have stayed a lap later, everything would have been different. You know, so that's motorsport. That's why we love this crazy world, and that's why we love Nürburgring, because things like that happen 20 times a day here.
Well, it's remarkable that he's still smiling. He was in a very, very commanding position. Of course, just chose to come in and take those slick tyres at just the wrong moment. As he made his way out of the pit lane, it rained again.
I was about to come in for slicks, but I saw that it's starting to rain again, so I set out and choose rain tyres again, which was the key for the success today.
And there you have it from René Rast then. He was one of those that benefited from the fact that he got it exactly right and was able to take another set of wet weather tyres. Let's hear from Marco Wittmann now then, as he heads back into the pits.
We lost a lot of positions. Stopping twice in a race is always not the best solution, and at the end we just could get home with P9.
We had to pit a second time, so we are looking good. Just keep cool.
Keep cool, Lucas Auer, then, as he and Robert Wickens head into the pits, opting for rain tyres once again.
Go, 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 go.
So Lucas Auer sent back out into the race then, so too Robert Wickens. And Matthias Ekström, of course, is still trying to nurse the car on slicks.
I think I want to pit for wet. It makes no sense here.
So sure enough then, Matthias Ekström with the call to the engineers to come back in to put himself back onto those wet weather tyres. Now this is Eduardo Mortara going around in the sister car to that of Lucas Auer. Maxime Martin goes past, so too does that sister car. So Lucas Auer then going past, and he has the back marking Maxime Martin car ahead of him. So Lucas Auer with Edo Mortara and Robert Wickens behind him now under investigation. The incident between Maxime Martin and Eduardo Mortara that provoked that spin for the number 48 car. In comes Paul di Resta. Now, where is Paul di Resta going to come out relative to Lucas Auer? So here comes Paul di Resta then, and Lucas Auer is going to slot in behind Paul di Resta. So effectively, Paul di Resta will be in the lead of this race now with Lucas Auer P2. You'll recall right at the start of the program I said Paul di Resta could be a danger man from P5 on the grid, and Paul di Resta is now leading the race. P2 is Lucas Auer. Now, when you consider the positions that they are in the championship, as Lucas Auer runs wide there over the Astro, that allows Eduardo Mortara to get alongside, but there'll be no stoic defence from Edo Mortara against Lucas Auer, because as I was mentioning, when you consider where the drivers are in the Drivers' Championship, Lucas Auer ain't going to have too many problems getting past Eduardo Mortara, and I suspect that he won't have too many problems getting past Paul di Resta either. So let's see how it develops then in the final stages of this DTM Race 1 here at the Nürburgring, so affected by the weather conditions, which have gone from wet to dry to back to wet again. And ironically, probably not too many laps from now, the track will begin to develop a dry line again.
Why? I drive against Edo.
So Lucas then mentioning the fact that he is behind Edo. Edo keeps wide and allows Lucas Auer to go through on the inside. Just ahead of Lucas Auer, though, is Loic Duval. And Loic Duval, who has been in for a change, but he's down there in P16. Lucas Auer needs to get past him as quickly as he can. Here comes Robert Wickens on Eduardo Mortara, or does he? So Edo closes the door on Robert Wickens, which is really rather surprising, but I suspect that will change in just a few meters' time.
2 laps, I will make a move.
2 laps, I will make a move, and here comes the move on Paul di Resta. No heavy defending from Paul di Resta, as I predicted, so Lucas Auer finds himself in the lead of the race for the final turn, the Coca-Cola turn. This is how it happened then. You can see that dry line beginning to develop, as I mentioned. However, we're right at the end of the race, and there's cheering in the HWA garages. It's been a dominant performance from Mercedes-Benz, who have found the conditions to their liking, especially Lucas Auer, who is going to take the race win. All he's got to do is round the Coca-Cola turn, and it will be Lucas Auer that takes the win from Paul di Resta and Robert Wickens. Great strategy from Mercedes-Benz.
Well done, mate. Well done. Great ride. P1, di Resta P3. Wickens.
I think all 6 cars in top 10. Great job by the strategy guys as well. I think they kept calm and did not make any too early decisions. So yeah, and it's also good we are back in the championship fight. And nice race day.
So Uli Fritz very happy then. Lucas Auer, Paul di Resta, Robert Wickens and Maro Engel taking P4. So top 4 places all going the way of Mercedes-Benz. Let's hear from the Canadian racer Robert Wickens then, who will be on the podium.
Up front it was a close fight. I mean, it's always a high risk thing to fight another Mercedes, especially when you're in a top 3 lockout, so I decided to play it conservative and yeah, make sure that we secured the podium. But I was feeling a little racy there at the end.
Well, the trophies are being presented by Klaus Ludwig, who is here, and he's racing actually in the Classic Series, which are on the undercard here at the Nürburgring this weekend. As Lucas Auer receives his trophy, let's hear from Paul Di Resta.
Great result for the team. I mean, six cars in the top 10. I don't think you can ask for much more than that, but credit to the guys because they've given us a car that's very strong, and we've done what we set out to do.
Everything can change so quickly in the DTM. Matthias Ekström still heads the Drivers' Championship, but now by only 1 point ahead of Lucas Auer. René Rast is at P3. Let's hear from our race winner.
Before the race, everybody came to me, are you back in the game? Maybe yes, maybe no. And now everybody says, you're back in the game. So it's motorsport. Things change quick. And at the moment it looks good. Let's see tomorrow.
Well, a supreme performance from Mercedes-Benz meant a 1-2-3 on the podium, but the biggest celebrations of all, of course, for Lucas Auer, who now finds himself P2 in the Drivers' Championship, just 1 point behind Matthias Ekström. What will happen in race 2? Well, here comes the grid, and it's Marco Wittmann and Paul Di Resta, P1 and P2. Then we find Robert Wickens and Lucas Auer together on the second row of the grid, a Mercedes-Benz lockout. BMW, P5 and P6 for Tom Blomqvist and Timo Glock. Weather conditions better for Augusto Farfus and Gary Paffett. Augusto perhaps the unluckiest man in race 1. Bruno Spengler and Eduardo Mortara share the fifth row of the grid, P9 and P10. Then it's Jamie Green and Maxime Martin going from P11 and P12. Then we find Matthias Ekström, the championship leader, a lowly P13. He has Maro Engel for company. And it's Mike Rockenfeller and Nico Muller, P15 and P16. And under the warnings dotting up procedure, René Rast takes a grid job, which puts him right to the back, and he has Loic de Waal on his inside. Weather conditions then, as I mentioned, altogether different for race day number 2. It's windy, it's cold, but it is dry, as the cars and drivers and huge number of spectators, just shy of 80,000 people here for this race weekend. They're all getting ready for race number 2. 55 minutes plus 1 lap, so René Rast then demoted by 5 positions. He saw the black and white flag for the 3rd time yesterday, and under that totting up procedure, he gets a grid drop. It was a P14 result for Mike Rockenfeller in race 1. None of the Audis have qualified really well. Mike will be going from P15, and Matthias Ekström will be starting from P13 on the grid.
Sunday is normally the days when I get my points. Normally Saturdays are not so good, so we'll try like always, but when you watch on the grid and you hardly don't see the start lights, you know the qualifying was pretty bad.
Well, it was pretty bad because the best of the Audi drivers is Jamie Green, who goes from P11. He is wished well for the race then from the head of Audi Motorsport, Dieter Gas, who of course will be concerned that Matthias Ekström may lose the championship lead today.
We try to do what we can, and even if we should lose the lead today, that doesn't mean it's over, for sure. We'll fight until the end, and I still hope that then when we are in Hockenheim we could have the better end for us.
Well, Paul Di Resta had a blistering start to the race yesterday. Ended up finishing the race, of course, at P2, therefore on the podium, and see if he can replicate that start from yesterday. Weather conditions very different today, dry, cold, windy, certainly none of the rain around. Robert Wickens was also on the podium, the Canadian racer taking P3. He will have high expectations for the race today. The big winner yesterday, though, was Lucas Auer. Taking the race win propels him to P2 in the Drivers' Championship. He's going from P4 on the grid, and if he can make it 2 out of 2, what a birthday present that would be.
Today you're starting in P4, and I know it's your birthday tomorrow, and if you do another great result here in the race today, that would make you leaving the Nürburgring as championship leader, and I guess that would be a really nice early present for your birthday.
Yeah, but to be honest, I want to leave Hockenheim as champion. No, but anyway, I don't look on the championship. I just try to win, and the rest I don't care.
Well, Marco Wittmann during quali secured pole and secured a very valuable 3 points.
To start from pole is always nice. It's definitely the best position you can have, and I hope that the weather plays into our cards today, and then hopefully we can go on the podium. Best would be, of course, on the top step. So yeah, let's see.
Well, backing up Marco Wittmann will be one Mr. Tom Blomqvist, who will be going from P5 on the grid behind the 3 Mercedes-Benz cars that line up directly behind Marco Wittmann. Lining up alongside Tom Blomqvist is Timo Glock. He will be going from P6. He had a real topsy-turvy race in the rain yesterday. And talking of the rain, let's get a weather prediction from the head of BMW Motorsport, Jens Marquardt.
It looks like it's going to stay dry, so hope it really keeps like that. In the Eifel, you never know. But as you said, yeah, we had a good starting position yesterday, but with the weather and everything, we just got it completely wrong then afterwards. So today we have to make sure we get it right.
Well, we have 55 minutes plus 1 lap for race number 2. Identical duration to that of race 1 around this 3.629 kilometer circuit at the Nürburgring, which features 11 turns, 7 of them right-handers, 4 of them are left-handers. A smooth and flat surface, which is medium stress on the tyre construction in dry conditions as the lights are out and we're away and racing. And a brilliant start from Paul de Resta and also a brilliant start from Lucas Auer. So Marco Wittmann could find himself relegated to P2 going around turn number 1. Sure he does. Lucas Auer could find himself in P3. He slots in behind the BMW of Marco Wittmann, but the start from Paul de Resta was brilliant and he finds himself in the lead. Lucas Auer already challenging Marco Wittmann. Timo Glock goes wide and rejoins just ahead of Jamie Green around turn number 2. Here comes Paul de Resta, Marco Wittmann and Lucas Auer all over the back of the BMW of Marco Wittmann, trying to find his way past the BMW around turn number 5 as they head in towards the left-hander, which is turn number 6. Turn in now, and then they'll make their way down the back part of the circuit, what we call the back straight, which heads up to the NGK chicane. Let's go on board with Lucas Auer now. Will he line up the BMW potentially for an overtake going into turn number 9, which is uphill? It's the start of the chicane. He's not close enough to Marco Wittmann to be able to do so. Paul de Resta goes through, so too does Marco Wittmann, Lucas Auer, Robert Wickens, then it's Augusto Farfus, Bruno Spengler, and then it's Tom Blomqvist as they all make their way through the chicane. Let's get a replay of the start then. It was a good one from Paul de Resta. Pole position here at the Nürburgring is on the outside. You need to be on the inside going into turn number 1. Now, the advantage that Marco Wittmann has is a car length over Paul de Resta, but Paul de Resta with a superior getaway meant that he got that inside line into the right-hander, which is turn number 1, and was able to convert P2 into P1 after but a few meters. Gary Paffett getting past Timo Glock, and good overtake there from Gary Paffett going into turn number 1 as all the cars make their way through the sequence of turns unhindered. Great shot from the helicopter. That is where Timo Glock went wide then around turn number 2, and there was delight in the Mercedes-Benz garage at the start of Paul de Resta and also the start of Lucas Auer, of course, who moved himself up into P3. Down through the gears he goes. Heavy braking around turn number 1 as you're running downhill as well. This was Marco Wittmann then, who was really rather stuck on the outside and was defenseless against the overtake from Paul de Resta. On board with the BMW of Timo Glock as he adjusts the brake bias with that wheel that's inside his car. This is Maxime Martin, who's taken a drive-through penalty for having jumped the start. So Maxime Martin then serves his drive-through penalty, and here we can see in replay quite clearly that Maxime Martin is moving before the lights go out. So Maxime Martin picks up a drive-through penalty for a jump start. So Paul de Resta leads, but Lucas Auer from P3 spins. A disaster for Lucas Auer from that P3 position. He loses the back end of the car and he goes around.
I thought.
Straight on the radio to his team, apologising. But a huge error from Lucas Auer, which will cost him dear.
I said it again. So sorry, guys.
Well, full of apologies. Now, basically, just clips the curb, and that's enough to unsettle the back end of the car, and it becomes very unstable. And let's see it from on board here. It's now that he just clips that curb, that upsets the back end of the car, and around it goes. The team cannot believe it.
On my side, just a big sorry to the team. They worked very hard, and it was just a mistake by my own. You see, on the limit and sometimes over the limit, but that's what it is now.
Well, Lucas Auer very much holding his hands up and admitting the error as Jamie Green and Maro Engel are battling here. It gets a little bit physical, but it benefits Matthias Ekström as well. It's the battle for P7, 1 star against a total of 8 rings, because both Jamie Green and Matthias Ekström getting past the Mercedes-Benz of Maro Engel. And let's see it on board from Matthias Ekström. So Jamie Green and Maro Engel fighting ahead. Little bit of a panel rub between the two of them. That opens up the inside line for Matthias Ekström, and he is able to take advantage of that and move himself up past the Mercedes-Benz of Maro Engel. Robert Wickens then, currently P3, heads into the pits, and
Okay, my front to start to go.
I think that was the tyres are starting to go from Paul di Resta, so we expect him into the pits before very much longer. And indeed, Marco Wittmann now lining up Paul di Resta as they head down the start-finish straight. This could be an overtake going into turn number 1. Marco Wittmann in the BMW, Paul di Resta in the Mercedes-Benz. Marco Wittmann dives to the inside. Into turn 1 they will go. Paul di Resta will try and get underneath the BMW, but Marco Wittmann knows exactly where to place the BMW to prevent Paul di Resta from coming back at him. So Marco Wittmann then P1, Paul di Resta is P2. Those that haven't stopped yet, you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. This was it from being on board with Marco Wittmann. He'd got the overtake done really before they were going into turn 1. It was at that point that he needed to place the BMW in a position where Paul di Resta couldn't come back at him. So they both head into the pit lane now. So Marco Wittmann then, the two-time champion. The RMG team go to work on the car. What sort of a time have we got here? 7.9 seconds for Marco Wittmann, and this is Paul di Resta. The HWA team working on the Paul di Resta car. A 7.9 pit stop time to beat. Maybe a problem with the left-hand rear, which there was. In any event, Paul di Resta would have been held to prevent an unsafe release ahead of Marco Wittmann. So Marco Wittmann gains a valuable few tenths on Paul di Resta as Augusto Farfus then in the BMW makes his way through turn number 1. Here is Paul di Resta back out on track again. Now bear in mind that Marco Wittmann is going to be on cold tyres, so too is Paul di Resta. It will take them a lap or so before they can get their tyres back up to operating temperature. So still to pit, Loic Duval, Nico Müller, Maro Engel, Jamie Green, Matthias Ekström and Bruno Spengler. You will recall that one of the early stoppers was Robert Wickens, and his impressive surge begins as he overtakes Augusto Farfus after the latter passed him following his pit stop. And the Canadian next is lining up Marco Wittmann as they head down the start-finish straight now. Marco Wittmann, the number 11 car. Behind him is the Robert Wickens Mercedes-Benz car number 6. Through the inside goes Robert Wickens and wrestles away that P1 position from Marco Wittmann. So effective race lead then, once all the pit stops are taken into consideration, is now with the Canadian racer Robert Wickens. So this was how he got past Augusto Farfus, going through the chicane, heading towards the Coca-Cola turn number 11. Certainly plenty of rub in between the Mercedes-Benz and the BMW, but even though Robert Wickens had to take a lot of curb, he got the inside line, which is critical coming out of that turn number 10, and was able to make the place his. This is Paul di Resta following suit, passing Timo Glock and chasing down Gary Paffett, which won't be too difficult. This is P11, but actually it's P5 when you take into account the pit stop situation. And great shot there on the splitter cam, if you like, of Timo Glock as he tries to fight back against the Mercedes-Benz of Paul di Resta. Ahead of Paul di Resta is Gary Paffett. Paul di Resta lining up the Gary Paffett Mercedes-Benz now, cars 2 and 3. Gary Paffett and Paul di Resta as they go around turn number 5 before the left-hander, which is turn number 6, continuing to run downhill before they get to the right-hander, which is turn number 7, which leads onto the back straight here at the Nürburgring. And this is where Paul di Resta, with DRS assist, will be able to pass Gary Paffett without any problems at all, I would suggest. They go through the kink, which is turn number 8, taken absolutely flat out. And here, sure enough, comes Paul di Resta. He will have the inside into the NGK chicane. A slight lock-up, but good overtake from Paul di Resta. Not made too difficult by Gary Paffett, who will perhaps not be quite so lenient when it comes to the Timo Glock BMW, which is behind him right now. So next in the target sights of Paul di Resta will be the BMW of Augusto Farfus. Meantime, here comes Timo Glock, desperately trying to find a way around the Mercedes-Benz of Gary Paffett. Tries his luck around the outside of turn number 1, and this could work really well for Timo Glock then. Gary Paffett does have to slot in behind the BMW. Brilliant overtake from Timo Glock, the BMW driver, as he heads on the exit of turn number 2 now. But this in replay then, as Timo Glock tracks the Mercedes-Benz, pulls to the outside of turn number 1 and has the speed and momentum and is able to go around the Mercedes-Benz of Gary Paffett. Good move by Timo Glock, a great overtake. As I mentioned, next in the target sights for Paul de Resta is the BMW of Augusto Farfus. They have the Audi of Loic Duval, the all-green machine ahead of them. Paul de Resta goes through on the inside of Augusto Farfus, and next he needs to get past the BMW of Loic Duval. And ahead of Loic Duval is Nico Muller. Now, Nico Muller has not stopped yet, nor has Loic Duval, as Marco Wittmann and Robert Wickens get side by side. Heavy pressure between the two of them, but the Canadian for the moment is able to retain his position. Little love tap there from Marco Wittmann on the back of the Canadian's Mercedes-Benz car. So Wickens and Wittmann then fighting together here. So Robert Wickens then heading the BMW at this stage of the race. Around turn number 5 they go, running downhill. Robert Wickens P3, Marco Wittmann P4, but bear in mind we have to take the pit stops into consideration as well. And this was Marco Wittmann trying the inside line. Both of them running wide, both of them carrying the same speed out, but Robert Wickens having the inside line for turn number 2, which was absolutely critical. Good effort by Marco Wittmann, but it wasn't quite going to work, and there was that little love tap between the BMW and the Mercedes-Benz driver. So Nico Muller, who has significant damage to the back of the Audi, which occurred as the result of a collision with a Timo Glock. Here you can see Timo Glock then makes contact with the back end of Nico Muller's Audi. And after this,
brake balance, you are position 10 and you are...
Team Radio, let's hear from Timo Glock.
We know what Audi did in the past with Nico Müller. That's pretty common, I would say. I think every race he's someone who needs to just play around and just make the race totally crazy, and that's what it's tough for him. I think I'm feeling very sorry for him that he has to do that.
Into the chicane, I defended on the inside. I braked normal, just trying to make the corner somehow, and maybe a second after I braked, I got a hit from behind, a pretty hard one. At the moment I didn't understand really what happened, because there was more than enough space for probably 2 cars on the right-hand side, and he drove straight into my back, so that was a bit of a surprise.
Well, we hear from both of the drivers as we go back to the race in P9, which is being contested now by Gary Paffett and also Matthias Ekstrom. Matthias Ekstrom on the inside of Gary Paffett now, trying to wrestle away that P9 position, and Jamie Green lurking behind as well in the Audi, hoping to try and find a way past the Mercedes-Benz, and he does so. You see it from being on board, and also coming through is Jamie Green there. Little touch between the two of them, Matthias Ekstrom and Gary Paffett, of course, long-serving drivers in the DTM, and Jamie Green not far behind either. Well, both of them find themselves ahead of Gary Paffett now. Jamie Green on the inside of Matthias Ekstrom going through turn number 1. Matthias Ekstrom running very wide. Jamie Green makes the place his. We're on board with Matthias Ekstrom. Green getting past both Augusto Farfus and Matthias Ekstrom. So the order then, as you can see, it's Wickens, it's Wittmann, and it is Paul de Resta. So there is Paul de Resta ahead of the BMW of Marco Wittmann. So a P1 and a P2 for Mercedes-Benz, with Robert Wickens leading the race. Paul de Resta is P2 ahead of Marco Wittmann, P3. Then it's Bruno Spengler, Mauro Engel, Jamie Green, Timo Glock, Matthias Ekstrom, Augusto Farfus. And this is how Paul de Resta got past the BMW of Marco Wittmann. It was going through turn number 8, which is the Advan Bogan. It's the kink I talk about that is taken absolutely flat. And there you can see from being on board with Marco Wittmann how Paul de Resta with the DRS assist was able to go through. In the meantime, in the penultimate lap, a battle for P9. It's Gary Paffett against 3 BMWs, those of Augusto Farfus here, and Maxime Martin and Tom Blomqvist as well. So a big lock up from Gary Paffett as he tries to get to the inside now of Augusto Farfus. That line is blocked by the BMW driver, and now Tom Blomqvist on the outside is trying to go past as well. Gary Paffett none too pleased with some of the tactics of the BMW drivers, as you can hear. And apologies for Gary Paffett's colourful language as he heads down into turn number 1 now. Keep your eyes on Maxime Martin, because there is a little tap from Maxime Martin on the Gary Paffett car, which is hardly aiding his temper with regards to the fairly physical battle that's going on between him and the BMW drivers. And it would get ever more physical as they headed towards the chicane. Maxime Martin to the outside, Gary Paffett on the inside, both of them trying to make their way through the exit of the chicane, and Gary Paffett ends up spinning around. So let's see it again. Maxime Martin on the outside. Gary Paffett definitely got the inside line, but as they go through the NGK chicane, Paffett ahead, but Maxime Martin touches the rear end of the Gary Paffett car, and as we know, that's enough. That's all it takes to destabilize the back end of a DTM car, and Gary Paffett ends up being spun out. So various angles that we can look at that from, but the result stays exactly the same. Gary Paffett having to use opposite lock to try and control the slide, but once the back end is going, it is going. It wasn't all bad news though for Mercedes-Benz, because Robert Wickens clinches his first victory of the season as he rounds the Coca-Cola turn and heads for the checkered flag. It is a race win for the Canadian racer Robert Wickens, P1. Paul di Resta takes P2. Marco Wittmann is P3.
Unbelievable, Rob. Mega. Wow.
So a great drive from Robert Wickens then to take the win.
Save fuel, pick up rubber.
And crucially in the championship, here comes Matthias Ekström, who will take P6 and bank points, whereas Lucas Au, who spun, will take none.
Collecting points is important, so I didn't have the best feeling today, but in the end I got some good points. I'm happy with that.
So despite the win, then it will probably be mixed emotions for Mercedes.
On the one hand, it's of course a little bit sad with Lucas, but I mean, mistakes happen sometimes, and that's what happened today. But I'm really happy for Rob and for Paul. They did a great job, an amazing race, and just controlled it to the end.
Confirmation of the result then, Wickens, di Resta and Wittmann, the 1, 2, 3. Then it was Spengler, Engel, Ekström, Green, Glock, Farfus and Blomqvist, the top 10. So it means that both René Rast and Lucas Au are also fighting in the championship. Of course, neither of them bank any points from the race itself. Let's hear from the P3 driver now for BMW, Marco Wittmann.
Robert just undercutted us with the heated tires, or he was earlier on track already with the tires to get them on temperature, so he got me. I came back to him, had a chance and tried it in turn 1 where we had a touch, and I think my car took some damage from it. And afterwards I unfortunately struggled with some graining on the front tires and couldn't go the pace, so at the end a bit disappointing.
So Harold Gross then makes the trophy presentation to Robert Wickens, who takes the win in race 2 here at the Nürburgring. Let's hear from the P2 driver Paul di Resta.
The main focus at the end was to take points off of Wittmann in the championship, and it's been a successful weekend. Get honest to say, we've been on the true pace we've had to be. And you know, sometimes you get rewarded and sometimes you don't. Same time, we should be very happy to win both races as a manufacturer. It's been a strong weekend.
2 races, 42 points. Despite this tally, Robert Wickens has got hardly any chance of clinching the title. Matthias Ekström retains the overall lead, extending it to 9 points before the race weekend in Spielberg in Austria at the Red Bull Ring, of course, advantaged by Lucas Au's mistake in race 2. And in super slow-mo, Robert Wickens is cheered in Parc Fermé, diving to his team.
Robert, you did a fantastic job, and it's also your maiden win this season, so you've got to be absolutely happy. Where's your smile?
No, it was. I was trying to be serious a little bit. No, to be honest, I'm so happy. I mean, honestly, going into today's race, I didn't think a win was on the cards. I was just hoping to be on the podium. And after the stop, I mean, everything came alive, and I was able to get by Marco, Farfus, and try to get a small gap. And I can't thank the guys enough. You know, we've had such a tough summer, really, to be honest with you. And yeah, I'm so happy for the guys. Results like we had this weekend and like in Lausitzring is what we've deserved all season. We've just have been having a hard time putting everything together, and this weekend it was just perfect.
So today it's all about the smile and not being serious. Congratulations, Robert. And that's it from us from the Nürburgring here. So see you in Spielberg in 2 weeks. Until then, here are the highlights. Enjoy.